Hey there. So once again, this is Greg and Mira and Greg. And today we're going to talk about a very interesting topic. Mira brought this up, the 4B movement, the event that's going on or was going on in South Korea, originating around 2016, got reemphasized again in 2019. And then now it's finding a little bit of prevalence in the United States post the Trump election. So from that, since this is definitely a mirrored topic, I'm going to let her give us a little background on the B movement and what it means to her.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, it was a little bit surprise for me to try and find articles about 4P in English, and everything was around fall 2024. So November, December, and then really related to the elections. And it was a little bit not unfortunate, but it hurt a little bit my heart because the 4B movement has been in Korea for some years now. But it looks like it becomes really known when it is in the English-speaking newspapers. Anyway, it's a good thing because now people can know a little bit more about it. And it means the 4 no's, like no marriage, no child, no dating, and no sex. And as Greg said, it started in around 2016 due to a case of femicide, or when a woman was killed in a metro station, a famous metro station, so in Gangnam. First, it was what really spread a reaction was how the case was treated. So like a normal case, even though the killer, he said that he was disappointed by women because he had been, what's the word that he was using? I don't remember. Ignored.
Been ignored by women.
Yeah, by women. So like he found just a young woman and woman and he killed her. But that was not the only case. So there have been a lot of sexual harassment cases, especially online. So it was like the trigger of a larger movement of resistance, if I could say, because just to put it in the context, South Korea, it's a very patriarchal system. And when I say patriarchal, because I've used this word several times, and I mean, there are so many definitions of it. We could go from the most philosophical and theoretical ones to the simplest one. It's kind of simple. It's like based on ancient Greek. And it's like the rule of the father, if I just could say it like this, like the patriarch. But in a more sociological way, if I could say, it's like a social system. Again, when I say social, it's including economic, cultural, political, so a society where men have quite a higher power compared to women. So where men dominate women. So like this is like the simplest way to say it. It's like it's not only men who keep this system, so that's the issue. So it's men and women together. And you know, there is this fantastic American feminist of the 70s and 80s and also now, Bell Hooks, and in one of her great books about feminism is for everybody, so that's the title of the book, she says that the most patriarchal person that she had it to fight against was her mother, because like she was the one who was perpetrating these practices of you have to serve your husband or you have to serve your dad or your brothers, etc. So South Korea, it's a very, very patriarchal country.
Love this distinction you have when you enter women into those who perpetrate the patriarchy. Because, you know, as a man, always looking to not take the blame for every single problem in the world, I'm always looking for some counter arguments. And when I hear the idea that patriarchy is not just pressure from men, pressure from women, I can't say I love it because it's such an argumentative, case, but I like the fact that there are people who are looking at, both sides of the sexes, if we were to say there were only two, as far as finding, not fault, people that are both perpetrating and accepting the patriarchy and pushing it on to society. It's not just a bunch of men saying this is the way it's going to be and all women are trapped and tied down. It's also women who are part of the establishment, from my perspective, that are also keeping this patriarchy alive. I have such a hard time with that word. For me, an interesting thing is, a lot of this is based on what the women from South Korea are indicating as social pressure for them to basically be baby machines. They're just to create and maintain the population. South Korea obviously has one of the lowest, if not the lowest, birth rates. And by some accounts, it's a dying culture. It's eventually, if things don't change, it will go away. It will evolve into something else. Those people will migrate, or new people will come to the region and claim themselves as whatever that new thing is. So I find that particular argument to be a little bit weak. I know that when this phenomena first occurred, a lot of the men in South Korean government were blaming women and saying this is the problem with our low fertility rate. I think that's a pretty oversimplification of what the problem is, but it's still an interesting one. I'm surprised you didn't go over the actual pronunciation of the 4Bs. That's normally what everybody's doing when they're discussing that. And I know that you're a linguist, and I know that you are working on your I think South Korean. I don't know the difference between them both.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. I think it's the same language.
Yeah. So did you want to go over and what those things are, or do you want me to do that? Because I'll try to do it.
Yeah. And I'll correct you if it's needed.
Yeah, it will be. So no marrying is the bino.
Bihon.
So the B is the negative, the negation in that.
Yeah.
So no giving birth is the bichosan. And then no dating men, which I find it very interesting that they specify men only, but no dating men is beyond no. I don't know about that. And then no sex with men, again, identifying only men to not have sex with, as bisexual. Bisexual. I'm stealing all your thunder, huh?
No, it's like the French, but it's really interesting what you said about specifying like no dating men, because that was also one of the specifying men, because they are trying to, it's also related to the language, because in Korean, when you say girlfriend and boyfriend, or even like dating someone, it's really like specified that I'm dating a man. So it's also related. I don't know now how to explain it in English, but it's really like,
no, I think I understand.
Language structure. So, and let's also remind that South Korea, it's one of the countries where same-sex relationships are still like, I mean, it's not that they are criminalized. You don't go to prison but you are quite cut from from society, and they are not really accepted. So it's still something that it's so not accepted, that young people, they hide. Young people, old people, I mean, but especially for young people who are a little bit like more free in their expression of their sex orientation. So they try to hide it.
Interesting. So,
and no, I just wanted to go back to what you were saying about politicians, because I don't know if you noticed it in one of the articles. It was that we were reading. It was also said that for some times they in South Korea they built this map of showing young women in reproductive age, like a map of South Korea that with the pink. I mean, you had in this village there are like 10 women of reproductive age. So, and this was something that again triggered the idea of being considered as baby machines. Like, what are you doing? And
no, it almost, I'm waiting for the app to come out. Hey, in this town there's 3 baby makers.
It's crazy. Yeah,
it is ridiculous. I find that type of division in the sexes to be kind of distasteful. So we're talking about this movement, this 4B. It's definitely a feminine movement, and we were talking about this yesterday. And you were given a description on the different types of feminist movements, I recall, because this is deemed radical feminism, right? This is pretty radical form of the idea of feminism, and its goals are pretty straightforward. But it seems like it's kind of a drastic measure. Do you mind giving a little more definition on some of the different types of feminism and what makes this so much radical, I guess? if I haven't answered that already?
Yeah, it's considered as radical by some also feminist or not feminist, like scholars, critics, journalists, etc. Because mostly of the no sex and especially no dating men. Because during the 60s and the 70s, when we have this development of the feminist movement, especially in the US, but also in Europe, and it was a huge wave of feminism, there was a kind of classification of feminism in four main streams. So it was liberal feminism that is mostly connotated to white, middle class. I mean, not really the poor or the most discriminated and marginalized communities, but like the middle class or the richest population. Then there was the socialist, the Marxist, and also the radical feminism. And the radical feminism was
I said, oh, those radicals.
Marxist, tick, 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 tick. No, I thought that it was about Marxist feminism.
I'll go back to that.
So, and radical feminism, like one of the main authors of it was U.S. author Shulamith Firestone, and she was talking precisely to not have like a relationship with men, and she was quite for the same-sex relationships, because like that was kind of the ultimate liberation for women. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have an answer of how broad or who was the hugest between these four streams. And of course, this was because there is also this misunderstanding that feminism is a homogeneous movement, that everybody thinks the same and we're all the same and we're fighting for the same thing. I mean, we should be fighting for the same thing in the sense of equality in the society. I mean, this is what I believe. So nobody should be discriminated based on sex, color, race, ethnicity, etc. So this is the feminism that I believe, but it doesn't mean that all the feminists in the world, they believe the same thing. And I mean, yeah, you were saying that it might be an obstacle to be such a not homogeneous movement. I don't know. I think that...
it seems like if there was a crafted mission statement and everybody was moving towards the same thing, but it seems like it's very unorganized. There's issues of feminist versus feminist, and it seems like that's like the least possible way of being successful and pushing a message if there is if chaos is the message. And
I fear that would make, if it was homogeneous, that would make feminism, as all the other movements, that at a certain moment they have turned to a kind of political organization in the sense of a political party. That would make it very believing in the same thing, maybe also make it very divisive toward the others. And I mean, I really don't believe in political parties, because as soon as they have the same ideology and they believe in the same thing, then they turn in a very pyramidal organization. And I mean, I would prefer a more chaotic, but having this ultimate goal rather than this pyramidal organization that we know what happens in these cases. The top of the pyramid, it's so far from the interest of the base of the pyramid.
I think we see the same thing in your theoretical socialist ideology as well. It starts out as everybody's just helping each other, but there's always going to be people that have to stand out and try to take ownership of everybody else.
I don't know, maybe you know it very well because you've been studying political sciences, but there was this German political scientist and he has this, oh my goodness, it's, maybe I forgot the name of the law, because I mean, when I was a student 25 years ago, it was, the name of the scientist is Robert Michels, and he had the iron law of the organizations or of the political parties, and he was studying the Social Democratic Party in Germany at the time, and also the conservative right-wing party. And so he was saying that even though they have completely different ideologies and interests, we might say, because one is a socialist or a left-wing, let's say, because, I mean, I don't know and one is right-wing. After being really developed, at a certain moment, the top of the pyramid are so similar to each other, and they are like each other, but so different from their bases.
Yeah.
their basis. I don't know if I could call myself an anarchist. I'm not an anarchist because I have been living in Switzerland 8 years, and you know how I follow the rules of living in the community. I'm a very good rule follower. But on the sense in regard to the political parties, I think that I prefer the anarchist way of. And you know something else? Sorry, I'm just talking, but
No, it's okay.
regarding the radical thing, I say myself that I'm a radical, but
Feminist, radical feminist.
yeah, but radical in the sense of the root. Yeah, the root. That's fantastic. It's like a joke. Like the root word of the Latin word, which is really radici and means root. So
Okay.
radical for me, it's to find the root causes of an issue
Oh,
and try to solve them. So that's my radical. So, and if the root causes, it's, I don't know, the different gender roles that we have, let's try to solve this issue. So that would be my radicalisms.
okay. I'm kind of interested. I know it's going way back on where you started, but you know, for me, it's so peculiar that this movement. So you're saying South Korea, I'm assuming that you have far more information about them than I do because I have very little, and I know that you have an affinity for their cultures.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that if you're saying that there's less homosexuality in Korea based on their society, and I think you said that, you know, there's people that kind of hide a little bit, and then you have this doctrine of the 4Bs, and it specifies no sex with men. And I can only take that to mean that it's, and as you said, it's, you know, so homosexual sex for women is okay underneath the 4B doctrine. What does that mean? Why is that broken out? Is it broken out just because, you know, it's a sexual or a difference between, you know, sexualities? Not really. I don't know if that's the best way to say that, but it's an argument between men and women that will make it as basic as possible. The women that are advocating for the 4B policies, what have you, whatever you want to call them, do you think that they are, I don't know, have a prevalence of homosexuality, or is just the moniker of no sex with men just part of the messaging?
I think that it's part of the messaging and part of the language. I don't think that it's related to them being only lesbians or
Gotcha.
mostly lesbians. So, because it's also no dating, as I said, no dating men, the language of South,
The language.
like the Korean, it's really like no dating men. Now, I'm a little bit speculating because maybe, I mean, but based on the language, I think that that's mostly a symbolic thing rather than really let's just date women, because I mean, you cannot forcibly date women. Not everybody is a lesbian and not everybody is a bisexual, even though I think that we are maybe most of us are a little bit bisexual if we see deep down ourselves. But
that's a
this
claim
is what
that
I think.
I'm going to let you stand on, and I'm going to
This is
disagree
what I
with you. That
this
most
is
of
what
us
I
are
think.
bisexual. That's a hell of a statement.
I'm saying it because we all have female and male traits.
Calm down.
Like,
Calm down now. Well, I think, you know,
so,
what are your thoughts on the idea of the low fertility and the 4Bs? Or better yet, it's easy to say, okay, this started after a young lady was murdered. And I know some of the difficulties are because the individual that murdered her, you know, wasn't charged with a hate crime. You know, that was an issue. They wanted that to be a hate crime towards women, not just a murder. Why? I'm not entirely sure. I guess hate crimes are more popular these days. But if that's not the cause of this movement, or that's just the spark that kind of started it, and I think the idea of the birth rate is blaming that on women. There might be something to that, but I'd have to see a lot of research, you know, more than just somebody's opinion. Do you have any theories on the origin of this? That's a little bit more
of the birth fertility,
of the 4B
the low
in general. What made these women, in your opinion, you know, from a feminist perspective, kind of start this, or is it the things that we're already talking about?
If you see South Korea, I mean, for me, I started to understand the culture and the society when I was reading mostly South Korean literature that luckily was translated like recently in English. So it was possible to read, and mostly female authors. And there was the same pattern everywhere, despite the differences in their writing styles. The same pattern was how difficult was the situation of women in the South Korean society. Even though it echoed with other countries, like I would see similarities to Albania, to my country, or even like to parts of France or Portugal, so countries where I've lived and then I know better. The most striking thing is that although they are going to school, they are being educated, they still have low salaries compared to men. So I'm not sure if I have the accurate data, but in South Korea, the gender pay gap is of 30%. So women in 2024, despite the increase in the recent years, they still gain 70% of what a man gained, like 100%. So the gap, it's one of the lowest between the developed countries. South Korea, it's a developed country because they have a very high GDP, and so it's not considered anymore as a developing country. Or so this, I mean, it's not that this is the main reason, but I'm just mentioning some reasons.
No. That's what I'm trying to tease out here, because I know I have a list of a couple of different things, like the housing cost and childcare cost. It seems like it's pretty difficult. Women are, if they're making significantly less money, and I know a lot of those numbers are massaged and they don't include certain industries. There's division of industries for men and women typically.
Yeah.
Creating that, I'm just parodying it. So I'm just trying to look at the real effects of what's causing these things. So from your perspective, it's just the difficulty of.
Yeah, and because you have this difficulty, like the economic independence, but also what is expected from you. So it's kind of, you are expected to get married like by 25, or I don't know, by 27, let's say. I'm just saying a year. Maybe in South Korea, it's 30 years old. And if you're not married by that age, the social pressure, especially from your family, and from your mom and your dad. So that's why I was saying that women are also participating in perpetuating the system.
Definitely. Then we need to change this whole patriarchy word, because first
I
I'm
was
saying it, but there's got to be some word that incorporates both men and women as the pressuring function within the society.
The patriarchy, it's because, no, but I mean, it really explains it well. I know that you're a man and you don't like it, but the fact is that we have more men in all fields of society. So even if women are participating in it, it doesn't mean that they are benefiting the same as men or the same as all, like most of men. So you have in politics only men, very few women. In economics, in finance, like you have so few women. So
we all could argue that it's only men there, but we all have to still admit in the end that everybody is welcome to try to go there and do those things. But
yes, but you cannot do it if you have to take care of your family, of your children, and of everyone else in your family. And in South Korea, going back there, women do unpaid care work, which means like taking care of the cooking, cleaning in the house. So the technical term, it's unpaid care work. They do 3 times more than men. So they're working in their paid job. They're going to the company. They're going to all the automobiles industry and whatever in South Korea there is, but they also still continue to work at home 3 times more.
Well, so, that argument, it sounds so good on paper, but I mean, men are doing things
in reality.
Men are taking out garbage. Men are killing cockroaches and bugs. I mean,
don't base on your own experience.
Yeah, of course.
Because, I mean, in the sense, even if I was just basing on my own experience, the word would be perfect in the sense of, okay, I'm sharing responsibilities, but it's it's so difficult for many women. And just going to the birth rate, I was looking a little bit at the countries, because the country with the less gender pay gap is Iceland. So in Iceland it's 90%, I think. Wow. Something like this. The gender pay gap is just 10%. So it's the lowest in the entire world.
What attributes to that rate? Do you have that information as well?
Because the salaries are very good, and also women are working. So they are participating in the paid work, in jobs. They are not staying at home to take care of their families because this is what is expected for them. And also there is, that in Iceland now it's illegal to pay differently because of gender for the same job. So the companies every year, they have to show that they haven't done any, discrepancy of payment between a man and a woman.
That's crazy. But all that information makes me think, if they have found a way to be successful at it, what are the limiting factors of these other countries? It's just the government. Just the governments. They're not having these rules and laws to equalize pay, and they're just holding on to their old traditions.
It's also the societies, how fast they are changing or how slow they are changing. For example, in Iceland, it was since the 75 that women started to protest every year. The day they calculated that from 20th of October or from the 10th of October, they were working for free because based on the gender pay gap.
Yeah.
From 10th of October until the end of year, they were working for free because their annual salary was already finished.
Gotcha.
So they started to protest, and one day, I think it was in 75, they decided that they would go on a general strike. So they just went to the main square in Reykjavik and they stayed there. And it was funny because most of the men, they were saying that they had to take care of children and to cook and to clean and everything. And they just went to the supermarkets to buy ready-made things. Yeah. And they could not find any more because everybody was in the supermarket. So it was like the joke. Oh. So there was none left. But they made them a little bit more aware of the work that was being done in the house. I mean, I'm not sure that it didn't change automatically, but this kind of protest and awareness raising started to change things. And I wouldn't say that Iceland is the perfect country, but I mean, when we see the data, and Iceland is one of the countries among the developed countries that also have a very, I think after France, it's the country with the highest fertility rate. Oh, wow. Because of the policies to support families, like with kindergartens and which are free, and so creches.
That indicates that's a willingness rate. So fertility is all about willingness. That makes sense, and I like that idea. It's pretty obvious because when I hear about these fertility issues, it seems like it's we can't figure out how to have babies. It's like, is that what governments have done for us? That's crazy. So you're talking about the idea that in Iceland, they had this event and it brought awareness. Is that what the 4B movement is? I mean, it's obvious. It's just for awareness. I'm putting words into these young ladies' mouths at this point, but I would say that of these 4, no marry, no birth, no dating, no sex with men, or just in general, that's obviously just trying to push a political movement. Are these women doing this for the rest of their lives, or is this a short-term activity that they're participating in?
I mean, in general, these movements start also to raise awareness, sometimes by making a huge provocation in the sense that, or like you have to shake a little bit the things. I don't know if you noticed in the article that we were reading that some of the South Korean professors or sociologists or feminists that were interviewed, they were also saying that maybe this is too radical, maybe we should be a little bit more careful and so build something different. So as I said, it's you have all the movements regarding feminism or resistance to patriarchy again. Yeah. So it might be by, I don't know, smashing red colors to the walls of the government, by having some very provocative slogans in your hand when you go to a protest, or like this, like the four Bs. I mean, I think that the great success of it, despite the fact that then it was used, if I could say, by all the US newspapers because of some political issues, which, to be very frank, I don't know if I'm happy or not, but I think it was just to make people aware of the situation or how frustrated young women or women in general are feeling in South Korea. Because there was also this other case in 2022. You mentioned hate crime, that in 2016, when it was the case of this killing, it was not used hate crime. But in 2022, a guy, he aggressed a young woman working in a convenience store because she had short hair. And short hairs in South Korea are associated to being a feminist. I mean, so if you're a feminist, you're an evil. And so this young woman was beaten very badly by this man just because she had some short hair. And so the guy, he was, how do you say, condemned? Yeah, under hate crime. And it was the first time convicted under hate crime. So I don't know if it will go on. I mean, it's a good thing that it happened.
It sounds like it's already made changes. From 2016 to 22, the same crime, in theory, is now treated under different laws with hopefully different penalties. So we started to go there. Let's go there. If all of this was occurring in South Korea, and we'll say from 2016 or even sooner, or relatively around that time forward, and then now it's this movement is finding fresh blood in the United States post the Donald Trump second presidency. What do you think the meaning is behind the American 4B movement as it's transitioned from South Korea and it's gotten here, and still you see these videos of women shaving their hair and trying to reduce their attractiveness according to the male gaze, which I would equally say is the female gaze. Females judge other women by their looks just as harshly as other men. Going off topic, back to the United States and the post-Trump. It seems to me that if this was going to be a political movement and there was going to be a lot of traction based on it, it would have happened in the United States prior to Trump being elected. But it seems like it's all happening after Trump was elected. So it's almost like it's not a movement to change something per se, but it's more like we're going to punish you men for picking the wrong candidate or being of the wrong political mindset. That is how I see it, since it's like after the effect of the elections. Is that a short-sighted mindset on my part? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, if they wanted to punish men just because Trump was elected, I would be kind of surprised, because I know that many women also voted for Trump, which for me, it's not that it's a surprise, because as you know, I don't think that men are evil and women are perfect, because that would be so easy to change things if it was so easy, the distinction. So it's nothing to do with it. But I mean, I was kind of surprised to see this fashioning of the 4Bs in the US, because in the US in the 60s and the 70s, they were the promoters of feminism. So, the protest against Miss America and burning bras, I mean, I was inspired by the feminist movement in the US. So I don't really understand why women in US, they need to bring the 4B movement from South Korea in order to find some support. So I think that they are, or they should be, but maybe they are not visible, which is another problem of the media. So to make them visible, I mean, they should be in the US root movement, which are US based. And I'm not sure that things changed immediately with Trump. Things were there. Now they are more visible.
No, I don't think they've changed at all. That's surprising for me that this movement has come to the United States. I also recognize that Trump had a much higher turnout with women. So just like you were saying about feminists, women, I guess, are also not a monolith. They're all making their own decisions, which sound very unnecessary. All people are doing that. That's what I'm trying to understand. What does this movement mean in the United States? If it's not all women, I guess that's okay. That's fine. It's just a subset. what are they trying to actually, what change are they trying to make? Are they looking for legislation that turns, assaults of women into hate crimes? Are they looking for, you know, legislation that fixes the gender pay gaps? I mean, I guess yes would be the answer to all these questions, but I just don't find that it seems like a genuine movement. It seems just like a little bit of a, crying and complaining and just, throwing your food across the table, because what is it really accomplishing other than hurting the individuals that are participating?
I think that, if they are participating, they would be willing to participate. Why
No,
are
I'm
you
saying
saying
if you're a girl and you're not going to have sex with men for the next 4 years, who is that hurting? I mean, theoretically, there's some other man or some other woman that's going to replace that. You're just hurting yourself.
Yeah, but I think that maybe it also shows that you have some power over yourself. And for young women and for women also, is this that it's absent. So having power over yourself. And so if you're single, which is such an unfortunate thing, like that we have to be obliged to do that. It means that the social pressure is huge, so you prefer to stay by yourself. But I think that it's a way of raising awareness. Now, we know that we live in the digital area, so I think that bringing the 4B in Europe or in the United States, it was mostly a TikTok thing, that it might not be a very bad thing at the end. I mean, I'm not really judging it as a bad thing, as long as it raises awareness for more articulate discussion. The Equal Pay Act in US already exists. I mean, if it's not being implemented, this is a different thing, but the law is already there.
Yeah.
And I think that there is such a huge tradition of feminist movement in US that if it was mobilized and capitalized, there is no need to bring other movements. I mean, there is always fantastic to share experiences and to know what is happening in another country. But I don't really think that the feminist movement in US needs the 4Bs or whatever movement it's there, because as I said, there is a huge tradition. And I'm happy that the 4B happened in South Korea, because as I said, it's one of the countries where women have and still are suffering so much. And men, again, you were mentioning the image, and you know that South Korea is one of the countries where the social pressure for your image, it's the highest.
Yeah.
You always have to be perfect, like you have to make over all your face in order to fit the beauty standards. And this is both for men and for women. So they suffer so much from being the perfect. So if there are some persons, in this case women, that are resisting to this, I think this is a good thing, even if it's just to raise awareness.
Absolutely.
What it will bring, I don't know. I don't know how strong it will be. I don't know.
Bring a bunch of lonely women, and I guess lonely men too.
I mean, maybe, yeah, but maybe these lonely men should find the strength to support these women and to find a different way of staying together, not following the rules that have been established by people, so they can be changed. You don't think that our way of living can be changed? Yes.
Well, of course I think that, but I find it difficult to hear, hey, let's have these great recommendations for men and just call it a day and everything will be good.
No. It's
and
not
I know you're going to say you're going to say, oh well, men have been in charge or something like that, since the beginning, and that's not true. I've not been around since the beginning. So what about me? No, I understand where you're going. It's just if we're going to look for an answer, it has to be an answer that involves behavioral changes from everybody, and just make it a statement. Well, if men start doing it this way, everything will be great. I'm like, okay, that throws me out of the running, because it has to be everybody involved in a change for the good for everybody, not just one group capitulates for another, so they can have more of what they think are their rights, when everybody has theoretically, the same rights as other people. I don't know. It's just, if you're going to say, let's have change, everybody should be participating in that change, not just one group does something and we'll all accept it. No?
That is perfect. Like, that's the solution, to work together with men and women, because the pressure is on both of them. The women, men, and all genders, they are expected to do some things from society. So that's the problem. So you're expected, I don't know, to protect. I'm expected to care about the house, or to iron, which is something that I completely hate to do. So why am I expected to iron clothes? So, I mean, why this is
God.
a women's...
I'm going to remember this forever.
No,
Every
I mean...
time you say something, once you get to that iron board.
I'm just taking an example. So that's the problem. And I believe that as long as we keep it a women's issue, it's not going to change a lot of things.
Point. I agree with that. It can't be just...
I am for raising awareness of women so that they can know their rights, because I don't know if I've told you this case, that there was a documentary in Albania and the journalist asked a young woman, have your husband beaten you? And then she answered, if I deserve it, he can beat me.
Interesting.
You have this young woman that she thinks that she deserves to be beaten because, I don't know, she didn't put enough salt in the eggs or something like that. So you have to raise awareness of this young woman that you don't deserve to be beaten. Nobody deserves it. But also you have to work with young men to show them that, that's not the relationship. So and beat. So but if you just work with the young women, okay, nothing will change in reality. She will just be aware. But
I think we're finally agreeing on something. That has to be a unified effort. Men people and women people.
We're agreeing on something related to feminism. I cannot believe it.
Finally. Well, I wanted to delve into a few more things, but we're kind of running out of time. So I guess we'll talk about those things next time.
Or because this time was mostly focused on feminism, which makes it kind of biased towards me because I'm like the feminist researcher among us. So maybe next time we could choose a topic related to the military. And so you could be the expert and I'm making the questions.
I'm not an expert in anything. Anyway, I'm sure we'll have plenty more things to talk about here in the future. So interesting. It was nice talking to you. It's fun to research this topic and find out a little bit more about it. I know it goes in a lot of directions that we didn't cover. And in a way, I'm kind of glad. I mean, some of the things I think we will talk about more in the future. But what I don't want to do is find myself in a situation where we're arguing about things like this and we're finding sides, because that divisiveness, the divisiveness movement that's going on in everything in society, I think that's what I really want to avoid, So
we have managed so far.
Yeah. It's a little bit. Well, nobody's looking, you yell at me, but I won't tell anybody. All right, Mir. Good talk.
Yeah. See you next time. And please send us your comments.
Yeah, definitely. If you have any questions for Mira and none for me, that's great. Please send them in. Awesome. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
Bye.